This one should be a fun one to record and hopefully for you to watch. The one quarterback on the Iowa football roster as we head into fall camp that no one is talking about, and why I think it's an intriguing storyline as we near the month of August and the final countdown to the 2024 season. We'll talk about that quarterback and what I think the impact it could have on the room in 2024. Before we get to the content for today's video, as always, want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor. And today we want to take a moment to recognize Under the Kitchen, Randy Engel down in Mitchellville, his original Hawkeye Prince. He's got a number of partnerships with Hawkeye athletes and some former athletes, including people like Tim Dwight, a bunch of great options for gifts, or maybe if you're just a collector, you love Hawkeye memorabilia, or you're just a huge Hawkeye fan, great options for you down at Under the Kitchen. Check it out, Under the Kitchen on Facebook, or you can visit underthekitchen.square.site. So former Colorado State quarterback Jackson Stratton transfers to your Iowa Hawkeyes. Yes, this news broke here a few weeks ago, and it didn't really make big headlines. Why? Well, he's coming here. He's going to be a walk-on at Iowa. Hawkeyes did not have a scholarship to give to Stratton, and I doubt they would have used a scholarship on this young man who's been in the FBS playing college football for 2 years, redshirted in 2022, did get some playing time. In fact, in 2022, Stratton played in 4 games. So he actually played in the max number of games possible in order to keep that redshirt. His stats were not good. All right, let's not sugarcoat this. He was 4 of 17 on the season, 78 yards, including, I think, like a 40-yard touchdown. Also had 2 interceptions that year. And the touchdown, I will say, I went back and watched it. It was against San Jose State. It was on a bit of a broken play, but it does go down as a touchdown for Jackson Stratton. Again, the numbers are not good. Nobody's going to act like they are. He did put up really big numbers in high school. Why is he coming to Iowa? Well, keep in mind, Iowa lost Tommy Pahalski Jr. here not that long ago. He had committed to Iowa as a walk-on, was on the roster, 1 year, and ends up entering the transfer portal. And what do you know? Colorado State takes Tommy Pahalski. I don't think he's on scholarship there, although I can't confirm that. But Jackson Stratton was on scholarship. So Iowa kind of played a trade here. You give up a walk-on quarterback to bring in a former FBS scholarship quarterback as a walk-on. So I guess from that standpoint, it's a positive ad, whether you like the numbers or not. Here's a kid who was originally committed to Washington out of high school, head coach there back in 2022, took a different job. Stratton ends up decommitting and going to Colorado State. What's interesting about this storyline is he was part of the 2022 class, but I was not able to trace back to see if John Budmeyer, who was the quarterback's coach at Colorado State, was also the offensive coordinator for a stint during the 21 season, if he recruited Stratton, because that would have been the time period during which Stratton was being recruited to these different schools. Eventually, Stratton ends up at Colorado State, and what do you know? He plays for Jay Norvell, former Hawkeye who left Colorado State nemesis, arch rival Nevada, for the Rams. So very interesting storylines. I'm guessing Kirk Ferentz had a conversation with Jay Norvell about Stratton. I would not be surprised if Kirk Ferentz also gave Jay Norvell some information on Tommy Pahalski. I think it's safe to say those coaching connections are important to some of the more seasoned coaches in the country. And hey, maybe John Budmeyer had some information on Stratton. Again, Stratton never played for Budmeyer. Stratton got there part of that 2022 class, and Budmeyer was gone after 1 season as the offensive coordinator, as their head coach got canned that same year. As I mentioned, those poor stats in 2022 for Stratton. He did not play in 2023, but he kept that first year, so he's got 3 years of eligibility remaining. Out of high school, he was listed at 6'4", 200. Now, according to the Iowa website, he is 6'4", 193. So interesting. Listed slightly lighter than before, and 193 is pretty darn light for 6'4". very light for 6'4". You watch him on film, and as you've been seeing here on the screen, you've got some highlights to peer over. He's got some mobility, certainly better than what we've seen out of people like Deacon Hill, Spencer Petras, Nate Stanley, although Stanley could at least move outside the pocket. The first two I mentioned really could not do anything once they got outside the pocket, couldn't do a whole lot inside the pocket either at times, but I digress. Stratton is more mobile than those guys, although that is not saying much. I've actually got that written down. That is not saying much given those guys' lack of mobility. But I would say at 193, the fact that he's lost a little weight would give me an indication that, hey, maybe he's worked on that aspect of his game, even though he is 6'4". He's got a strong arm, it appears. He's obviously very comfortable in the pocket. He's considered a pro-style quarterback. And so, maybe I was able to get something out of this young man. What's the impact he could have on Iowa in 2024? Obviously, Iowa added Brendan Sullivan out of the transfer portal. We expect Cade McNamara to be the starter, although he's coming off a second serious knee injury. But it's all about depth right now, right? Like, I look at a guy like Deacon Hill. Yeah, they got him last year. He was an FBS quarterback at Wisconsin, sort of a similar situation to Stratton. Never really proved anything, did not prove anything at Wisconsin, but Iowa needed depth. They bring in Deacon Hill. And hey, he played most of last year. Was he good? No. Obviously, we know he was not good. The offense wasn't good. Deacon Hill was not good. But part of Deacon's problem is he wasn't mobile. So I think Stratton will be an upgrade from that respect. And hey, injuries happen anymore with football. We've seen Cade go down. And although they'll have Brendan Sullivan, would I be shocked if Jackson Stratton ends up on the depth chart at some point this season? Absolutely not. I like Marco Lainez a lot. I like James Rezar, the freshman who just got there, but he just got there. So I would not be shocked to see, even though he's a walk-on, a guy who was a scholarship college football player at the FBS level the last 2 years, end up maybe as the third string guy. But if Cade or maybe even Sullivan, one of those guys goes down, perhaps Stratton ends up on the depth chart, and you hope that he never ends up on the field because that would mean some serious issues with injury. But the fact that they were able to add a former FBS scholarship quarterback as a walk-on, to me, is an indication they've got better depth this year than they did last year, and it's really not even close. So will Iowa be able to utilize his skill set? Who knows? Will he end up fulfilling the final 3 years of his career? I have no idea. But it's an intriguing one because nobody's really talking about it. But there's some interesting connections to Iowa, the Colorado State thing with Norvell and with Bud Meyer and all that. And here's a guy who was initially committed to Washington, a Power 5 school that went to the national championship game last year. I'd call that intriguing. I don't know about you. Anyways, wanted to talk about it. Kind of an interesting storyline for Iowa's quarterback room. If you are a Hawkeye fan, you're new here, be sure to subscribe, folks, because I'm going to be with you almost every day leading up until the season. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button on the way out as well. I'll talk to you next time.